Hey guys, Kevin Yates here, Stronger Over 50. So today I want to talk about what is the best way to build muscle in your 50s and beyond. Is it time under tension or is it heavy weights? Because this is one of the big questions that goes on. So let's jump right into it. So when we're talking about time under tension, what we're talking about is the length of time or the duration that we are working a muscle or loading a muscle. If this was the sole factor for building muscle, then wouldn't it just make sense to do sets of 50 or 100 or 200 reps and we build massive muscle, right? I mean, that should be the theory if time under tension is the most important thing, but it doesn't work that way. So, more is not always better when it comes to increasing time under tension. It does work, but it has its limits. So now let's look at heavy weights. So what we're talking about with heavy weights is we're typically talking about lifting a load that you can only do between 1 to 5 repetitions with. So that would constitute a heavy weight, and it's typically done with about 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max. Heavy weights may not build muscle to the same degree that more moderate weights would build. But the thing where heavy weights is a little bit different is in the muscle fibers that are worked on. So in order to build muscle, we want to make sure that we are stimulating as many of what are called type 2 muscle fibers. These are the muscle fibers that are capable of the greatest amount of muscle growth. So if we're not stimulating those fibers, we're not going to build muscle, period. All right. So in order to do that now, what heavy weights do is they stimulate one type of our type 2 muscle fibers. We have 2 main types of them. So these are the type 2X muscle fibers. And these are basically the muscle fibers that are capable of growing to the greatest degree. So we need those heavy weights to tap into those type 2X muscle fibers. So it's important to do all we can to make sure we're covering all our bases. And tapping into those type 2X muscle fibers is part of the deal. And then the other part is the type 2A muscle fibers. So these are the other ones that I was talking about. Now, these ones we don't tap into a great degree when we're doing super heavy loads, right? Those 1 to 5 rep ranges. But we do tap into them to a really good degree when we're doing more of the quote unquote kind of bodybuilding training, right? Where we're working, somewhere within that, 8 to 15 or so rep ranges. Those tend to stimulate the type 2A muscle fibers to a greater degree. So to answer the question then, which is better? Do we need more time under tension or should we focus more on lifting heavy weights? Hate to say this one, but they are both. They're really like 2 sides of the same coin. If we only do one and not the other, it's going to limit how much muscle we build for the same reasons. They work on kind of 2 different types of muscle fibers, and we need to tap into both those types to build, as much muscle as we can. And it's especially important, like I said, as we get older, because as we get older, we tend to lose muscle mass faster than we do when we're younger. We don't recover as fast either. So, we've got to be, smart and diligent and, and activating these muscle fibers in both types are super, super important. So it's not so much a matter of which one is best, which one do we pick, but it's more of we've got to work them both. Now, we got to be a little bit creative about how we do it, because if you just try and bang heavy weights day in and day out, you're going to burn out. You're going to kill your muscles, tendons, ligaments, and joints and stress them out and probably end up with pain and injuries. And on the other end, if all we do is more time under tension in those ranges, then we're leaving a lot of results and gains in muscle on the plate. We're kind of leaving them on the table and not tapping into those. So it's like I said, they're 2 sides of the same coin. We do need them both, but we've got to be smart about how we do it. One of the things that I did for a period of time was I was really struggling with higher volume workouts, more time under tension, more of those, bodybuilding rep ranges. And I was doing this last year, and I got to a point where I just was not able, I wasn't recovering well. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the desire to train for even like an hour or 45 minutes. It was getting increasingly difficult, and it felt like I was working so hard and not really seeing much results, like I just hit a wall. So I went through a phase of about 4 months where I did a minimalist muscle building routine, and the results were absolutely freaking amazing. My strength shot up, my gains in muscle started to increase again. It was like I felt like rejuvenated. My energy levels were bouncing back, and it was a minimal, 20 minutes to work out. But that's what I needed. And my focus at that time was lifting heavier weights. I wasn't really doing anything in those, 8 to 15 plus rep ranges at the time. And my gains improved like tremendously. Now, had I done that, for 6 months or a year, I would have tapped it out. Like I said, I did it for about 4 months, and that's where about I tapped it out. But sometimes it's like we have to know when to shift gears and what we need. So if you're interested in that program, I do have it available. Check the links in the description box, or the link in the description box below, for the minimalist muscle building routine. How do we build muscle? Which is the best way? Time under tension, heavy weights. There's no cut and dry answer. Both are needed. But the most important thing is knowing which one you need and when you need it is kind of the most important thing. And it's not going to replace the one factor, which is intensity. And that is kind of the key factor between both of these. Because if you this is what I said earlier, if you just increase time under tension, it only works to a certain point. You have to have the intensity to support it. So if you're doing like sets of 100 reps, 200 reps, there's really not much intensity that you're generating there, because you can just keep going and going and going. The load's not sufficient to generate that kind of intensity until you probably hit rep 100 in a 100 rep set, right? There's better ways to do things, and so that just says, and vice versa. Like I said, we can't lift heavy weights all the time either, because we'll burn ourselves out. You end up hurt and with injuries and all that kind of stuff and pain, and those are things you don't want to do. So with intensity being the key factor, then there's also another key factor we want to look at, and almost look at it like an umbrella under which time under tension, heavy weights, intensity, they kind of exist under this umbrella, which is progressive overload. And that just means that we are consistently and progressively challenging ourselves to a greater extent than what our bodies are accustomed to. Because once we adapt to the stimulus that we're putting on our bodies, if we just do the same exercises all the time, the same repetition ranges, the same weights, our bodies adapt. And so once we adapt, then we don't get the same results anymore. We stop getting results. That we don't just only need to increase our time under tension. We don't just only need to add more weight to the bar. Sometimes we can increase the challenge and the stimulus in our body by doing different things than that, such as changing an exercise or changing a variation of an exercise. You can change a bench press to an incline press. You can change an incline barbell press to incline dumbbell press. Just different ways that you can create a stimulus that's challenging for your body, and that will help to build muscle, especially as you get older, in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. And if you want more videos on how to build muscle in your 50s and beyond, check this video out.